It was a cold December night, and I was driving home after a long day at work. The road was eerily quiet, shrouded in fog, with the occasional howl of wind piercing the silence. I was about 20 miles from my house when I saw her, a young woman standing by the side of the road, waving for a ride. She looked pale, her face drawn with a mix of exhaustion and fear. I pulled over and rolled down my window. "Need a ride?" I asked. She nodded, her voice barely audible. "Please, I need to get home." She climbed into the back seat, clutching a small bag. "Where to?" I asked. She gave me an address about 10 miles away. As I drove, I tried to make small talk, but she only gave brief answers, her eyes staring blankly out the window. Something felt off. The air in the car grew colder, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching me. When I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her reflection seemed distorted, her features blurred. We finally reached the address she'd given me. It was an old, dilapidated house with no lights. "This is it," she said softly. I turned to say goodbye, but she was gone. The back seat was empty. I panicked, jumping out of the car and running to the house. An old man opened the door. "Excuse me," I stammered. "A young woman just asked me to drop her off here." His face turned pale. "You must be mistaken," he said. "That's my daughter's room." He pointed to an upstairs window. "She died in a car accident 5 years ago." Last summer, my friends and I went on a late-night road trip through a desolate highway in the mountains. It was pitch black outside, the kind of darkness where even your headlights feel useless. The only sound was the hum of our car's engine and the occasional chirp of crickets. Suddenly, in the distance, we noticed headlights approaching fast. It was a massive truck, barreling down the road at an alarming speed. Its high beams were blinding, forcing us to swerve slightly. The truck roared past us, but something felt strange. It made no sound. We laughed it off at first, chalking it up to a trick of the mind. But then, 5 minutes later, the same truck appeared again, this time behind us. Its headlights were so bright they lit up the entire interior of our car. "Didn't we just see that truck pass us?" my friend whispered, his voice shaking. The truck got closer, its engine now roaring like thunder. I tried to speed up, but no matter how fast we went, it stayed on our tail. Suddenly, it disappeared. Just gone. We pulled over, shaken, and decided to call it a night at a nearby motel. The next morning, we told the motel owner what happened. His face went pale. "That truck," he said, "is known around here. It crashed off a cliff 20 years ago. People say its driver still roams these roads, looking for revenge." A few years ago, I worked as a cab driver, mostly doing night shifts. One night, I got a call to pick someone up on a lonely stretch of road. When I arrived, a man in a black suit was standing there, perfectly still. "Where to?" I asked as he got in. He gave me an address in a quiet suburban area. He didn't say much during the ride, and his presence felt heavy. Every time I glanced at him through the mirror, he was staring directly at me, his expression unreadable. Halfway through the trip, my radio started crackling, and I heard a faint voice say, "Don't trust him." My blood ran cold. I turned around to confront him, but he was gone. The back seat was empty. I slammed on the brakes, heart racing, and looked around. The road was deserted. I decided to keep driving to the address he gave me. When I got there, an old woman answered the door. I told her what happened, and her face crumpled. "That was my son," she said, tears streaming down her face. "He died in an accident 10 years ago, on that very road." She pointed to a photo on the wall, and there he was. The man in the black suit